Hey, Louis, would you shut the door? Welcome back, everyone. Week 3 of our Introduction to Mindfulness Meditation class. And I think it's appropriate to actually feel good that we made it back, because we all know how life is kind of carrying us off in different directions. It's hard to stick to things. And as I mentioned, I think the first night, it's, I know it sounds a little grandiose to say it this way, but it's clearly the most relevant thing to be interested in the mind, interested in what the mind is doing, what the mind is knowing. Because otherwise we literally miss our life. We're lost in thought on autopilot. So let's do a simple exercise. And I think I mentioned this briefly in one of the previous classes. We know the world, we know our experience through one of 6 ways. We know the moment through sound. Sound is being known or heard. Touches, sensation, the tactile experience being felt. So sound, sensation, visual experience, taste and smell, and mental activity. So in the Buddhist tradition, we talk about the 6 sense gates, the 6 ways the mind or the heart is sensitive. So let's just check. And it helps because we can see that whatever sense gate is being known, like hearing is being known, there's both the particular, the specific qualities of the sounds of the room, but it's also the attitude that's knowing those sounds. Like what way is the mind relating to the experience of hearing? So let's just go through those 6 sense gates. We'll begin by just feeling, being aware of sensation. Right? So just realizing that, of course, the mind, the heart is sensitive to the experience of sensation here and now. And there's 2 things. There's the sensations that are being known, but affected by how the mind is relating or how the mind is knowing, like with what attitude or through what mood even. Like, are we relating to sensation with kindness or aversion? And we can do the same thing with sound. So just opening, noticing the natural sensitivity. The mind is naturally sensitive to sound. We can't actually, if our ears are working, we can't shut it off. Hearing is being known. So the attitude might be one of interest, being actually authentically interested in hearing, or it might be the opposite of interest. It might be like, well, who cares? So there's both the hearing being known, but it's affected by the attitude, the way we're relating to hearing. And one possible attitude is this, you could call it a more pure kind of interest, where the mind is in a very simple, receptive mode. So we did sensation, we did sound, now let's do seeing. It doesn't mean we have to look at anything in particular, we're just more of that soft gaze with our eyes. Seeing is being known. And even though we probably don't have anything very dramatic leading to the experience of taste, just even that neutral sense of tasting whatever the saliva or the mouth tastes like, just tasting is being known. The sensitivity of the tongue to taste, and any attitude, any way that we are relating to taste, maybe bored. And then aware of smelling. Again, it may be quite neutral, but still smelling is being known. How do we know? Well, because it smells like this now. And thinking, mental activities happening, right? It's a little trickier because thoughts are even more seductive than the 5 physical senses. But just notice thoughts, mental images, perceptions. All of this is mental activity. What's the mind doing, or what's the mind thinking? Interesting how it goes quiet when we look. And then putting the 6 sense gates together. So more full openness or receptivity to the totality of our experiencing. The mind, the heart is sensitive in these 6 ways always, unless there's one of the senses has been lost or cut off for some reason. And ending the reflection now, it's always good, like when you're sitting, to remember that there's something being known, and that something is always going to be one of these 6 sense gates that the knowing mind is knowing. But what we tend not to notice is the attitude that we have about what's being known. And that would be mental activity. Attitude is mental activity, but it's the kind of mental activity we tend not to notice. Like we're grumpy and we're going through the day and there's a grumpy attitude. The grumpiness affects everything we hear, we see, we touch, we smell, we taste. It affects the thoughts we're aware of. But interestingly, we don't tend to notice the attitude. So one of the things one of my teachers, a Burmese Buddhist monk, Sayadaw U Tejani is his name. He's come to the United States to teach, not so much recently. There's, if you don't know, quite a crisis in Myanmar or Burma now, with almost like a civil war going on, unfortunately. But anyway, one of the things Sayadaw, says is that we want to, just this awareness. He makes this important point that we need to check the attitude. And this is not just something we do during our formal meditation time, but all day long. It's so helpful just to be curious. This is not about judgment, and it's not even about fixing your attitude. It's just like, there is an attitude. It'd probably be good to know what it is. And there's always an attitude. So like right now, folks, what's the attitude? How's the mind doing? Like, is it greedy right now? Like, do you want to want something, want to make something happen, want to become somebody, some version of greediness? Or is it aversive? Is it anxious, fearful? Is it content? Is it restless, sleepy? What's the quality of the knowing, the quality of the mood, right? It's so helpful. And the reason we tend not to notice the attitude is there's this delusion that says, well, I'm my attitude, so why would I have to check what my attitude is? I mean, we don't actually say that in the mind, but there's something like it seems inappropriate in that kind of clear, non-judging, receptive way. Oh, the attitude's like this now. You know, it's like, this happens like when a good friend or a partner says, you realize you're being really defensive, or you realize you're really grumpy today, or boy, you're in such a good mood today. And we don't actually, often we don't want that mirrored back. It's like, no, that's just who I am. It's not like today, or I have every reason to be grumpy. But in our practice, in our Buddhist awareness practice, we want to see mood or attitude, the way the mind's relating, as like weather. And sometimes it's like this, and sometimes it's stormy, and sometimes it's humid, and sometimes it's foggy, and sometimes it's crystal clear. And we don't, hopefully, we don't take it very personally, the weather. We deal with it, we work with it, but we don't like feel like the weather's out to get us. I mean, I know we do sometimes, but we know better, right? Because we know the weather is just weather. It's just this impersonal process. And we can learn to relate to the attitudes, the qualities of our mind, the mind states, in the same way. Oh, yeah. And our friends too. Oh, you know, oh, this weather system and that weather system. Because the whole point, you know, of cultivating the stability of present moment awareness is to be intimate. The whole practice is this dynamic dance between intimacy and non-attachment. Somebody asks you, I mean, you can give them all kind of answers, like, what's the stuff you're learning at that Buddhist meditation center? You know, what's this? What's all this stuff about mindfulness? You know, you can say, well, what I've learned is it's really helpful if you're going to be human and have a life. It's really useful to learn how to do this dance where there's intimacy and non-attachment. And now that might seem a little strange, but try making an argument for the opposite. Okay, I'm going to write a self-help book, you know, and it's going to be all about disconnection and attachment. That's the ticket. I'll do seminars, charge $1,000 to teach you about disconnection and attachment, the way to pure happiness. You know, I mean, no one would go for that. It's just so obviously not the way. And if we do check it out, like in our own experience, and we cultivate in some moments, like that's what we do when we're formally sitting. We find a quiet space in a quiet room. We sit in a comfortable way that doesn't make us sleepy, so we normally sit up. And if we have a healthy body, then in a chair on the floor, we sit up in a way that supports alertness, right? And so when we're sitting up, especially when the spine is self-supporting, it's harder to fall asleep. But when we're in our lazy boy at home or a soft couch, you know, once we start getting tranquil, we tend to want to fall asleep. So we sit in a way where we can be tranquil to some degree, but also alert. And then we get interested in being intimate, either with our meditation object or with whatever's predominant in that moment, moment by moment. Hearing a sound, thinking a thought. Oh, it's like this. So intimacy, sensitivity, being clearly aware, but also non-attachment. And that's really that understanding that whatever is being felt as sensation or heard as sound or seen as sight, smelled or tasted or thought, so bodily activity, that's the 5 physical senses, or mental activity, so that's the short. Every moment is something being known. So what is it that's being known? Either bodily activity or mental activity being known. And there's always an attitude, which is also something being known, just that we're not in the habit of knowing it. So we can be intimate and we can be allowing whatever that bodily or mental activity is, allowing it to be, because in this moment, it's already this way. So even when we're being unskillful, and there's this strong sense like, this is unskillful, I should stop, we're allowing all that to be, because it's already here. And being intimate with an unskillful behavior actually supports the abandoning of, if we see it, feel it clearly, we tend to stop being unskillful. So this is the thing about non-attachment or acceptance. It's not the same as passivity. A lot of people misunderstand this about our practice. And so you say, yeah, okay, it's about, the guy said it's about intimacy and non-attachment. So and then, our friends will say, oh, so you're just gonna do whatever you want to do, not attached. Gosh, if I'm not attached, I can take what I want to take. Well, that's just what's happening. But the non-attachment is really an understanding that begins to naturally dawn when we have more and more stability of present moment awareness. Because, the way we take care of ourselves and the way we take care of each other, it isn't through attachment. Like some of you probably have been parents, still are parents. And, just because attachment doesn't help doesn't mean it's common. It is common, right? So we get attached a lot. But just bring to mind a relationship with your own body, a relationship with another person, a relationship at work, about like the quality of work you do at your job site. Will people respect me? Right? So we're attached in a lot of ways, but the question is, can we be a good parent? Can we be a good partner? Can we be a good worker, produce good work without the attachment? Is attachment actually functional? Because the basic view that's not actually checked out is, yeah, if I'm not attached, I'm going to sleep in and my kid is just going to cry asking for breakfast, but I'm not attached. Or, I'm not attached to the quality of the work I do. But we actually have to see if that's true, whether without attachment, we're an unskillful human being. And this is something we can check out for ourselves. Like, what is the proximate cause for being skillful in any particular situation of our day? What needs to be there for my thoughts, words, and actions to be wholesome and helpful? Does attachment need to be there? I mean, clearly, one thing that needs to be there is intimacy. We need to be connected. We need to be aware. Because how could it possibly be that my response would be helpful, appropriate, if I'm not even aware of what's going on? Right? So we need to be connected or intimate or open or sensitive. We need to be present. that stability of present moment awareness. And then the interesting question that we can begin to observe in our daily lives, does skillfulness arise out of the intimacy, or does it arise from some attached idea about what I should say, what I should do, what I shouldn't do? Which is kind of a control move. Attachment is a control move. So that's the interesting thing. So when you go home tonight to brush your teeth, or whatever you're going to do tonight, you can be attached to doing it the way you like to do it, or even attached to not paying attention when you brush your teeth. Or you could just see, like, no agenda except to be intimate. So you walk in the bathroom, take a hold of the toothpaste, but you're aware of the reaching, and you're aware of maybe that thought, oh, this is stupid. Okay, I can be intimate with that too. And you put the toothpaste on, and it's literally an altered state when we're intimate, when we're present. The ordinary way we move through life is distracted, not aware. Even though, if we took a survey of all the folks online now, about the same, looks like, in the 20s online and in the 20s in our room here in Minneapolis. And if we did a survey of the 45 people that are doing the class right now, are you aware? That would be the first question. Are you aware now? Have you been aware most of the day? I think everyone would want to answer yes. But that doesn't mean we were aware today. It just means that we have a story that it's like a repeating loop. I am aware, I am aware, I'm aware. But that's not being aware. That's having the thought, I'm awake, I'm aware, I'm paying attention. But we're mostly lost in thought. That's really the way to characterize the way the mind is most of the time, lost in thought. So when you bring that full and stable, intimate attention, well, one of the first things you notice is how attached the mind is in all kinds of ways. Like, remember, attached, like using the example of brushing our teeth, what attachment might look like in that situation for a lot of us isn't that, oh, this is the way I need to brush my teeth. Some of you will have that, you're kind of disciplined and you know exactly what you do. But a lot of people's attachment will be, this is a place where I'm attached to not paying attention. This is the place where I'm attached to not caring how I brush my teeth. That's my attachment. And the interesting thing, when we cultivate this stability of present moment awareness, we see how heavy and entangling and oppressive our attachments are, whatever they are. The attachment to not caring, the attachment to caring, it doesn't matter. Any fixed view is heavy. But we think we need this to do our lives. We need the attachment, we need the fixed views. But this is what we get to explore. Now that you have, we're week 3, everyone has, even people are brand new to practice, you have some sense of what it is, like even in this moment, to be aware, oh yeah, it's like this, hearing Mark talk is like this, feeling the body sitting, it's like this, noticing the attitude, oh yeah, there's an attitude here, it's like this. And in a way, we're going from the energy of awareness getting entangled with our thoughts and our interpretations and the doing and the becoming, to just this receptive presence. Like, we're putting all of the emphasis on that stability of present moment awareness. And you'll see your life continues. You keep thinking, you keep doing, you speak. Because this life, it's a living process, this body and mind that we all have. You'll see that you don't need, we think, oh God, I got to get up tomorrow. No, getting up will happen. You'll see, having breakfast with your partner. Oh, I got to say something to my partner. Well, it might just happen. And this is the interesting thing, like when we invest in being present, you might find that you keep doing your life, but you start to do it better with less friction and more ease and more creativity and nimbleness. But just in a really, like, it doesn't, not like a radical shift and people don't recognize you anymore. But it's that gradual deepening that comes from investing in being present instead of investing in me doing my life. And it sounds like, when I talk about it, it sounds so impersonal. And in the Buddhist tradition, we do have words that can evoke that, like dispassion is an important quality that begins to develop, and equanimity and balance and peacefulness and tranquility. And it's like, wow. I mean, we can be so arrogantly sure that those qualities, that's not what the world needs. That's not what my life needs. I need energy. I need dynamic action. But yeah, there are moments that really require that fierce, dynamic engagement. But where does that come from? It comes from being present in that balanced way. And then something needs to be said. And there's no friction. You just see, oh, wow, I just said that. I just did that. That was so cool. Or I just refrained myself from doing that. That was so cool. So glad I didn't do that. And we move through life more and more with the sense, like, as we navigate the different situations, things we've got to do, the attitude is more and more, well, this will be interesting. Like what I'm going to say. I don't know what it will be interesting. I'm going to be totally there, having dinner with a friend or going to this difficult meeting. And it doesn't mean we don't do our homework. Even when we have our homework in front of us, we're like, well, this will be interesting. Will I actually do it? Or will I scroll through the internet, avoiding my work? This will be interesting. So when we're scrolling and avoiding our work, it's like, oh, how's this working? Because the thing about that non-judging presence is it naturally reveals what the mind is doing, how the mind is relating, and whether that's helpful or not, skillful or not. That discernment of whether the way the mind is showing up and what the mind is doing, the discernment that, oh yeah, this is skillful in the direction of release, or no, this is unskillful in the direction of more stress, that is unavoidable when there's the stability of present moment awareness. That discernment just happens. And that discernment, oh yeah, this is skillful, this is a skillful way to be showing up right now, or this is an unskillful, that's not the same as a judgment. It's just clarity. Because that sensitivity, being present, being sensitive, we're sensitive to the moral implications of what's happening in the moment. We feel it. Isn't that true? When we're doing something we know is wrong, notice how we often don't want to be present when we're doing something that we know is wrong. Because we know if we're present, we'll stop doing it. So it's like what people do when they want to take something that's not theirs, or they kind of get themselves in a distracted frenzy so they can act out. But when we're grounded and sensitive and present, and it's like, oh, I don't want to say that to that person. because we're feeling, morality in Buddhism is real, but it's not coming from the outside, the God or whatever that's telling us what's right and wrong. We actually sense what's right and wrong. Isn't that true? Haven't we had that experience in our lives where we exploded at somebody, but there was some space of sensitivity, of present moment awareness, even as some of that anger was being acted out. And then we immediately, what do we feel? We feel the remorse. Oh, that wasn't helpful. That wasn't skillful. Same thing with when we are skillful and we're relating with kindness and clarity. And there's that appropriate, it's not pride, it's just like, that was really skillful. This is a tricky situation, and the heart, mind, whatever, handled it really well. And I'm so appreciative that I didn't make things worse by, doing whatever I might have done. Right? We feel good, the opposite of remorse. Like, oh, that was good. So that moral sensitivity is the real fruit of the stability of present moment awareness. So that's probably enough to just say a little bit more about why we do the practice. And especially, and you check this out when we do our sitting practice in just a few moments, why we want to pay attention to the attitude. We actually want to make it a habit. And we learn the habit in our formal sitting time. So in the sit tonight, several times, maybe even 5 or more times, just in a relaxed way, generate that curiosity. What's the attitude right now? And you can even say those words in your mind if you need to. You can verbalize it silently, of course. What's the attitude? And the question can be even more specific. If there's some intuition, that there might be some greed, some striving, like striving to get calm. Is there any greed? Or is there contentment? Is the mind trying to make something happen? Or is it content? And again, not to judge, but just to illuminate whatever mood or attitude is operating. Is there aversion or controlling going on? Or acceptance, allowing? So you can kind of, with a question, if you need it, you don't need to use a question, but you might, if this is sort of, you don't know what to do about, like how to check my attitude, then try generating a question that can help. Does this moment, is the attitude that's functioning in this moment, does it make experience seem very personal? Or does things coming and going, the experience, seem impersonal, like nature, just stuff happening, causes and conditions? Oh, no, it's me, it's my thought, my knee pain. So just that question about, is it personal or impersonal, can illuminate the attitude too. Okay, so let's stretch our legs. You might want to stand for a few seconds or whatever you need to do to release tension, but you can just cultivate that bodily awareness as you move your body. Oh yeah, sensations like this. And take your time, but when you feel ready, just find a way to sit that will be good for you tonight. Cultivating a relaxed and upright posture that supports alertness, whatever works for your body. We'll be sitting for about 30 minutes. And we're going to begin by using the sense gate of hearing. The nice thing about working with sound as your meditation anchor is that it can help remind us how to be receptive. So once you've taken a few deep breaths and made any final adjustments that you need to make, then just turn the attention to hearing. And the first thing we're going to recognize is I'm not doing the hearing. It's just hearing is happening. And I'm going to ring the bell a number of times just to create a more interesting sound, to practice this receptive or this receiving of hearing. And we just continue interested in hearing as our meditation anchor. And perhaps noticing the attitude of receptivity, allowing, acceptance. And just explore this possibility of non-distractedness with hearing, keeping hearing in mind. And we don't have to figure out the sounds. It's really more of a pure receptivity. Hearing is happening, hearing is being known. That's enough. And so this is a place where we can practice this marriage of intimacy and non-attachment. Letting hearing be. And with this same receptivity, we open to the whole body. We feel, sense all of the sensations here in the body coming and going. The body, of course, is alive with sensation. subtle and gross, pleasant and unpleasant, neutral. You might notice different habits of controlling or wanting to fix, some greediness, wanting the body to feel a particular kind of way, or aversion. And just acknowledging those different attitudes, noticing what's helpful, more of a intimate and non-attached attitude. See if that's helpful. As if for the first time, being authentically interested in being intimate, not with the idea of the body, but with the movement of sensations, the totality, feeling, opening to the whole body, just as it is, and allowing and allowing and allowing the sensations to do what they do, undefended. Which means even if we feel tight or contracted in the body, we allow that to be. We're not at war with tightness, with pain. We give permission and are willing to simply feel whatever is here to feel. Almost as if we're energetically saying yes, yes, always yes to the body. It's like this now. Even if it's hard to bear, hard to be with. And then we can notice the breath moving right here in the body. Let the breathing be however it is. And generally, as the body and the mind settle more and more, the breath rather, becomes more refined. But just trust the body to do the breathing and simply be aware of the physicality of breathing in and being aware of the breath going out. And we're practicing simply connecting and knowing and sustaining this interest, keeping the breath in mind through the in-breath, keeping the breath in mind through the out-breath. And we're learning how to be aware without needing to control or judge. And allowing the breath to become as refined or subtle as it can, as everything settles. And then finally, when strong distractions arise, simply acknowledge the distraction as something being known. It's either a thought or mental activity being known, or a sound, or a sight, or a sensation, less likely smell or taste. But it's just one of these 6 sense gates being known with a particular attitude, wholesome or unwholesome. That's all. So let's continue in silence now. Remember to check the attitude from time to time. Could be just a simple question: how's the mind? How's the attitude? Skillful or unskillful? Helpful, not helpful? And remember, you can always return to the basic training, which is feeling the breath coming in, feeling the sensations of the breath going out. Just practice that simple knowing. Breathing in is being known. Keeping the breath in mind through the duration of the in-breath. Keeping the sensations of the breath in mind through the duration of the out-breath. In that relaxed and non-judging way. And then as other distractions or other phenomena arise, simply acknowledge what's being known as something being known. This is being known. And for the last couple minutes, I think it's a good idea to train yourself to let the eyes open and just continue to sit. You can recall the 6 sense gates as we get settled with the eyes open. Seeing is being known. And of course, hearing is also being known. As well as sensing the sensations, feeling the body, also being known. And smelling and tasting is being known, at least to some degree. And of course, mental activity is also being known. This marriage of intimacy and non-attachment. And then we can take a couple moments to stretch, release any tension that might have come. And so I mentioned before, it's really so true how much we learn from hearing people share questions that have been arising in your practice, or your own reflections about what's been hard and how you related to that, what's been felt really insightful or good, how you related to that. Yeah, so kind of a report from your mind, whether it's a moment of your daily life that you're reporting in from, or a moment from your sit tonight or a sit earlier in the week. And let's start maybe with the folks online. You can just go ahead and raise your digital hand if you know how to do that. Otherwise, just go ahead and unmute yourselves. And we'll take a few comments. Any questions? Any reflections on the instructions? What was helpful or not helpful? Go ahead, Rajesh.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay. Sorry. So I have a question on meditation and something that's happening with me. So it is somewhat not fully related to today. What I'm finding is that when I meditate, there are 2 things happening which are kind of disconcerting. One is I feel a lot of tension in my face, and my forehead starts hurting. The center of my forehead gets very tense, and it starts to almost become painful. And the second one is really unusual, and it's been happening for quite some time. There's a lot of movement in my body, and my body gets pushed forward. And if I try to sit through it, it becomes very difficult because it happens more. Uh, it it happens a little more forcefully, and I have no idea as to why that is happening.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for getting us started. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff, for lack of a better word, that happens in meditation. I guess we could say energetic stuff. And I didn't ask, but maybe Rajesh, say a little bit about what you're doing with your mind when you're meditating. Do you have a meditation object? And if so, what is it?
Okay. Yeah. I come from a Vedantic background, but I've been in doing Buddhist practice for a few years now, and so there's a mantra I repeat, and it has almost become automatic. But more recently, I am trying to bring my attention to the breath, and more recently, very recently, after listening to some of your talks and other talks, I've just tried to become aware of awareness, and I don't fully understand that term yet, but I'm really trying to become aware of awareness and hoping that the pain that I feel and the tension that I feel in my face and the pain I feel in my forehead would disappear, because it's almost like maybe I'm putting into too much effort. I'm not too sure. And then the movement in the body has been happening for a long time. And I have tried to lie down and do it, and it still happens.
Yeah, well, let's do the tension in the forehead and in the face first. And because it does matter. I mean, the thing we have to realize is that we bring all of our habits and conditioning to our meditation practice. First, let me just check. Could you hear what he was saying? Good. Yeah, so, and generally, our approach to life, our basic attitude in life is trying to make stuff happen. We have the general attitude is we're controlling stuff. And so when we do meditation, whether, it sounds like Rajesh started with a mantra meditation, now working more with an awareness practice, including with the breath. But so much of the whole path of learning is understanding what wise effort is. And so we need a lot of forgiveness and patience as we begin to get clearer about how the way the mind is making effort is counterproductive. And I mean, not entirely counterproductive, but ultimately, the way we're making effort has to get constantly reformed and refined. Initially, it's like my mind's a wild mess, and I've got to be this fierce parent, that has all kinds of tricks up its sleeve to control the wildness of the mind, including, throwing part of the mind in the timeout room. You stay, you're suspended, you got to be in that room, you're not allowed out. So sometimes we need that parent, but it's never very effective. But it's slightly more effective than just letting the wild beasts do what they want, right? But over years of practice, more and more, not exclusively, we'll still need the parent sometimes, but over many years of practice, more and more, the kind of effort we're making is trust and allowing and letting things be. There's still an effort. We're keeping the moment in mind. We're remembering to keep the present moment in mind. And we're remembering to let it be. So there's still effort, but you see, it's a pretty refined effort of trusting and allowing and being aware. And the thing that compounds or amplifies this tendency to want to be more parental and more in control and more about making something happen is when we do start meditating, a lot of us, we've read some stuff and we've heard about people having interesting experiences, mystical experiences, profound experiences. And sometimes it's really specific, like chakras opening up, energy centers opening up, or seeing light, or whatever things we read about when we read about people's meditation experiences. So that that obviously can activate some striving, like, oh, I want an interesting experience. And especially once we've been sitting for a while and the dreaded nothing's happening arises, then we become even a little bit more desperate. At least show me that something's happening, that I'm not just wasting my, because we're all frightened about being duped, just sitting there, nothing's happening. We can feel like such a fool. I could be watching TV or, whatever. And I'm just sitting here looking special, but I'm not special because nothing's happening. So the reason I bring that up is just so we can be aware of it if that is the case, but especially so we don't get activated to renew this sort of greedy, striving energy. That's why we want to check one of the reasons we want to check the energy, the attitude rather, is like, oh, there's greed. This is the mind that wants to make something happen. That's called greed. Wanting things to be different, that's greed. Okay, greed is being known. So a lot of the tension that we can sometimes feel is related to the effort being off, but not always, right? Because sometimes when we're practicing well and the mind, the heart becomes more sensitive, we'll notice holding and blockages. And concentration is an interesting force in the mind. That stability of awareness is a real power. So when it brings something to mind, like there's some subtle holding, but it brings it to mind and it's aware of that holding as the only thing it's aware of, well, then that holding is going to appear to be as big as the universe, because it's the only thing the knowing mind is knowing right now. Because the experience, how the experience appears, depends on the way the mind is knowing. So if the mind is knowing in this full, unwavering, not distracted, exclusive attention, then that's going to affect the experience that we know, right? But if my mind is scattered and distracted, I could be noticing the same pressure in the forehead, but now it doesn't seem like much of anything. So just to note that if, like in Rajesh's case, if he's been developing some concentration, sounds like he's been practicing for a while, then there may be just an energy center, and there are all kinds of energy centers that we start to notice as the awareness becomes more stable, these more subtle energy centers. But if we're bringing this sort of focused attention, then it can seem really big, but it may seem really big more because of the quality of attention than there being a particular problem. So that's why, the basic approach, I mean, there are many meditation techniques the Buddha taught, but the one that's our sort of go-to practice, what we call mindful awareness, it has the quality of both breadth and depth. So it's not really an overemphasis on focusing on one thing, although we do that at times, but we don't, even when I'm using the attention in a more exclusive way, being attentive to like the tip of the nostrils as I'm feeling the breath come and go, we never forget the periphery or the background. Because check right now with me, when we're aware of the present moment, like this moment, So just activate or recognize that capacity to be open. See, awareness by its nature is inclusive. And so even though, right, we feel the great breadth of these 6 sense gates, the activity of the mind, the activity of the body, we can bring our attention to the sound of the blower. For those of you in the room, those of you at home, just some specific sound in the room you're in. But I don't have to lose the periphery, everything else, right? So objects can come into the forefront, but we can remain aware of the totality. And the reason why I'm saying that is that it brings a sense of spaciousness and relaxation with our awareness. And when unusual phenomena, like the other thing Rajesh mentioned, is that kind of energy, just like a force in the body, it can be kind of weird, even like people doing some, like they have a little tick or something, just movements that can repeat over and over, or they feel like they're really sitting up straight, but then their friend tells them, when you were sitting, you were like this or like this, because there's this energies that move, that old energetic habits, you could say. Because part of what's happening as we get more continuity is an unwinding, an unraveling of ancient patterns, right? Because the mind is taking a more receptive, relating in a more receptive way. And that allows, it's almost like creates a vacuum. And in that vacuum, energies that have been repressed by the busyness, distractedness of the mind, they get a chance to begin to unwind. And the key is, in these cases, like if you start noticing a repeated energetic movement, like in the case that we just heard, to move, to lean forward, just make sure you're neither for it or against it. You're just letting the body do. You don't have an intention to move the body. But if the body moves, well, what is it? That's nature, isn't it? It's not me. It's neither good nor bad. It's just a movement. And then if the posture's out of balance, then in a non-force, you don't have to do this quickly, just reestablish a comfortable upright sitting posture. And you can explore, like sometimes just let it do whatever it wants to do, even if you go all the way forward, just let that be an experiment. Like, I'm just sitting, I have no intention to move the body, but I feel. And then as you do that, just noticing if there's any attachment, very subtle, can be very, very subtle, liking that it's happening. And just be aware of that. Or aversion to it, not liking that this is happening. And then other times experiment with feeling the force, but not letting it change the posture. Because we learn in these different sort of ways of experimenting with it. But the important thing is not to think of it as a problem. And one more thing about when the tension really builds, like it can in the face or other places in the body, is it's always okay to change the object that you're working with. So hearing, because hearing has more of a spacious flavor to it. So when pressure builds in your practice, remember you can be aware of hearing. Or you can open your eyes and just be aware of the space in the room, the visual space of the room. And that can dissipate some of the pressure. Otherwise, it can be a feedback loop, like I mentioned earlier, where there's a little pressure somewhere. It can even feel like it's outside of the body, a few inches. It can be, like I said, it can be trippy sometimes. But then we focus in on it and it gets stronger. So then what do? We focus in on it more and it gets stronger. So what do? We focus in on it. And you see, it's almost like a panic attack, in the sort of meditative, energetic way, where something a little bit out of the box happens, but we bring that kind of greedy, aversive attention to it, which amplifies it, which makes it interesting. And it just keeps happening. So then it can be a really intense experience. And the mind wrongly understands, oh, something big is happening. Yeah, but we created it through not really recognizing what was happening. It was just an experience being known, but it shifted how the mind paid attention. And then that had implications. And so it's just like a mini version, a subtle version of creating drama. And there's a lot of this in sitting, especially people who've been meditating for a while, because it can feel like nothing's happening, as I mentioned. And so the mind can get sort of create its own little mini spiritual dramas too. So we just want to be on the lookout for attachment and for liking and disliking, but on more subtle levels, because it sets stuff in motion. And then that has, it's basically like creating a story that seduces the mind. And then it tends to repeat, because that's how our mind works. What we've done, we do again, right? Thanks, Vajesh, for that really important comment that you shared. How about somebody in the room? Anybody in the room have a question or experience in your meditation practice that you're willing to share with the group? Yeah, please. And maybe come up if you don't mind sitting on the bench, and I'll give you the mic so the people.
Does that work? I'm just curious, how does the concept of like manifestation or positive thinking, right, during a meditation, or just even like a meditation, how does that work while at the same time not clinging to an outcome, like where you're trying to have that positive outcome without having an outcome? I don't know, like, how does that work?
Yeah, that's a really good question, especially because these days there is a lot of encouragement, in different teachings and New Age texts about, just the power of aspiration, or the power of putting something out, of intention. And it's true, intention is powerful in the sense that it leaves an impression on the heart. So if I want to be wealthy, or if I want to have a quiet, tranquil sit, what wisdom understands is, well, tranquility arises because of supporting causes. Wealth arises because of supporting causes. So real wisdom is interested in the cause for wealth to come to be, or for tranquility to come to be, or getting a good night's sleep for that to come to be. What wisdom understands is wanting something to happen is in no way the cause for it to happen. So that's the difference between just like putting something out. What we really want to know is, oh yeah, there is that desire, so just be honest that when we have a desire like wanting somebody to like us, it doesn't help to suppress that. It's, oh yeah, okay, I want that person to like me. And then if I just get obsessed about wanting that person to like me, what wisdom and awareness is going to reveal, honey, that's suffering. You're getting really tight. You're obsessing, and that hurts, right? And you're becoming less likable, So that is not the cause for someone like. So what would be useful is to recognize, oh, there is that desire. And then in being open and aware of that desire, you'll get a sense like, is it a wholesome desire? Yeah, or maybe neither wholesome nor unwholesome, but there's nothing wrong with wanting someone to like us. But we understand that that person liking us will arise because of certain causes and conditions. And I don't get to control very many of those causes and conditions, but maybe a few of them. So, what has life taught us makes somebody likable? And am I being respectful of what life has taught me makes somebody likable. Well, maybe I'll, bathe more often, or maybe I'll, work on my personality in a way, and because that's what wisdom is. Wisdom understands that it's natural for humans, for us living creatures, to want. You could say that wanting or desire is the natural animating force of all life. And in Buddhist practice, we want to be aware of desire and we don't want to misunderstand it. Desire isn't personal, but it is real, right? So when we have a desire for something, that's not, conventionally in terms of language, we say, yeah, I have that desire. But you didn't go push a button to have that desire arise when it arose, right? It arose due to all these impersonal forces that are internal and external, right? And then there's desire. Even though I know we think I'm doing it when we have desire, the more you practice, the more you'll see, yeah, there's definitely desire and I need to take responsibility for it. Like, what do I do with it? Well, if the desire seems trustworthy, then I'll put my wisdom to work and I'll reflect. Well, what might set this in motion, this thing that appears to me to be wholesome? And I'll go to work at that. That's what we're doing here. We heard something about meditation. We had some desire to practice meditation. It's not easy to show up on Tuesday nights for 6 Tuesday nights. It's not easy to set time aside every day at home, because I don't know if I mentioned this the first week, it's nice to come every week, but if you're not putting a little time in every day, and some days maybe a little bit more time, then it's not going to make much of a dent, right? Because we're going against the stream of distractedness and superficiality. So that formal time where you get on that chair or you get on that cushion in that quiet little corner of your living room or wherever, and you sit there for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes, even though it's a real mess, it really will change things. So does that kind of get at what you're asking? And there's one more here, just someone wrote in the chat, thanks for that. See what here they are. I'm guessing that non-attachment and indifference are not alike. Can you talk about that a bit? Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because they do look alike. But when a non-attachment is not the same as indifference. When you really look at indifference, at least in the way that I'm using the language, indifference is a kind of aversion, a kind of hate. It's like, I'm giving up on this person, so I'm indifferent. Well, I have this desire to be, to get in shape, but now I'm indifferent because I've failed so many times, I don't want to set myself up. So indifference is an aversion. But non-attachment is really understanding that things are impersonal. So it doesn't mean that we're not engaged. It just means that whatever I get engaged with, like, I'm totally all in for this talk, I'm really here, even though we're out of time now. But that doesn't mean I'm attached. And you can do this going home. Like, you can be all in getting yourself home. For those who have to go home, those who you are home, you can be all in for whatever you're going to do next after the program. But does there need to be attachment? And this is a really good thing to explore with awareness. Really just observe when there is attachment, see if it's helpful, functional. And those times in your day where there's less attachment or seemingly no attachment, just see how your day goes, how that moment goes. And the thing is, non-attachment really brings us into the moment. Attachment disconnects us because we're identified with the attachment. But when we're not attached, the heart is really capable of being intimate in a beautiful way. So that could be part of our homework this week. Next week, we'll talk about obstacles to mindfulness. So pay attention, bring in what you find, and for the discussion time, what interrupts the continuity of present moment awareness, both in your formal sit and in daily life. And also remember, next Tuesday night, you may not want to come back online or to the room here, but come back anyway. Give it 6 weeks, then decide if it's something you want to keep working on in your life. Have a good week, everyone. Thanks for showing up. Hope to see many of you next week.